This is the Misdirected Mark podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
All right, new game.
Yep. Thought we'd go post-apocalypse this time.
What's our apocalypse?
Well, I mean, that's kind of why we're here. Kind of figure it out.
Not zombies, please. I'm sick of zombies.
Yeah, like, what about civilization rebuilding? You'll be like wasteland warriors discovering forgotten tech and and working to overthrow the local fascist regime. Oh, yeah. What do you think?
Wow, you know, I always want to punch the Nazis.
Yeah, me too. I'm in.
Okay, well, cool. All right, so then good. With that done, let's talk about safety. Let's talk about like lines and veils.
All right, then. I've got the standard list of lines and veils. I know we do this every time, but that's why we go over it. Everybody take a look and see if you want to add anything.
No, those look good.
All right.
Just making sure.
Okay, and we're going to do X card. I'm always a fan of the X card, so we'll have X card on the table. As always, we'll do open door. Right, we're all familiar with open door policy, right? So if you need a break, take a break. Yep. If you need to leave, you need to leave. And because as much as I like X card, I also want to do OK check-in, so that we can actually do consent affirming as well. So we can do, you can do consent revoking, with it, or you can do the X card. But I also want to be able to do consent affirming, like when we get into anything that's kind of really intense.
Okay,
cool. All right, let's do characters then.
All right, sweet. I want to be a road warrior. Cars, metal, muscle, and kicking ass. Life's short, and my character is going to be a man of action.
Okay, cool. I can definitely work with that.
And I want to be a scrapper. I want to rendering things down to their components and then rebuild them into something better.
Cool. I see a lot of synergy between you guys' characters, like tearing stuff down to kind of build up Bob's car and that kind of thing. So, I think that works out really well. Cool. Let's get into stats.
All right, I have a name too.
I do too.
Oh, all right, cool. Let's hear him.
I'm going to be Lord Session,
and I'm going to be Mr. Zero.
Yeah, of course you guys are.
And with that, welcome to the 446th episode of the Misdirected Mark podcast. Today we'll be talking about using Session Zero to create both characters and campaigns. Along the way, we'll take your comments, questions, and examples live from the chat room for life before jumping to the after show. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
And I am Old Man Logan.
Woo-hoo.
All right, kids. It is that time of the week. Let's see how everybody's feeling with our temperature check. Phil?
I'm COVID free, but I am thinking of getting some of that ivermectin, whatever that stuff is, the cow stuff, just in case. I was thinking of just stockpiling some of that ivermectin. No, what is it? It's a deworming heart.
Yes,
it's deworming sheep and cows.
Yes.
It's probably fine on viruses. Yeah. I'm going to just get a box or two just in case. No, I'm kidding.
The Misdirected Mark podcast does not recommend using any sort of horse stranglers in your system, nor do we recommend being a dumb shit.
Yeah.
Get your vaccine shot.
Oh, anyway, I can't tell you how I've been reading a bunch of stuff about it this week about like there's like an uptick in calls to the poison control hotlines in Alabama and stuff because people won't get a shot, but they'll totally go take this like cow dewormer. Anyway, I am fine. I did a little something last night. I pulled a muscle in my back and I was like, oh no, is this it? But I think I'm all right. I like. It's a little, it's like a little sore, but like I went to bed last night on like my nice bed and I woke up this morning and I was like, oh yeah, a little sore, but not too worse for the wear. And I like took a bike ride today and it didn't hurt. So like, I don't know, I guess I'm okay. And mentally, mentally I think I'm doing mostly good. I'm still having some concentration problems. I don't know exactly how to combat it. And I'm sure it's post-pandemic thing. Like, it's far easier for me to watch TV than it is to play a video game right now. Yeah. And it's way easier to watch TikTok than it is to read a book, which is a thing I'm still struggling with. So I'm still working on that. But I mean, otherwise my spirits are up. I spent a shit ton of money on my car today, so that never feels good. But my car had no AC, and I've been pretty miserable the last couple of days with the weather here. Driving in a car with no AC, like, is brutal.
Yeah,
because it's brutal out, my friends.
Yes, it is.
It is. It's muggy.
I think it's like
muggy.
84 right now.
Yeah.
The sun's like barely out. Anyway, it's gross.
Yeah, we don't want to go too long on this one, so let's.
Yeah, no.
Nope,
Yeah,
I'm done. Moving on. Bob, how you doing?
I too am COVID free. I am unfortunately not as lucky when it comes to the back. My back has been pissed off for like at least a week now. But all of the moving and lifting and twisting and stuff, that was bound to happen. I've been trying to take care of it here and there. But it is what it is. I'm not laid up. I can still function. So it's just pain. Pain is just weakness leaving the body, right?
No. That's just toxic masculinity bullshit right there. Don't let that shit.
Ain't got time for pain. I got shit to do. Mentally, I'm feeling all right. I'm tired. I've been super tired when I go to bed the last few nights, and I've been getting like a ton of sleep because I've been going to bed earlier than normal. So there's that. So that's about it. Jerry,
I'm doing pretty good. I got a lot of sleep this weekend, and I've also been going to bed a little bit earlier. I've been getting about an extra hour or so of sleep a night, which does make a difference. It helps that you and I have not been out playing Valheim until 2 a.m, which helps a little bit. Yeah. But no, it's been nice to get a little bit of extra sleep, and work has been busy but slow. It's not been hectic busy. It's just been lots of stuff to do. So the days go by quickly, and we're getting a lot of stuff done, which is always good. So yeah, I'm doing pretty good so far. So that's our temperature check.
Awesome. All right, let's jump into the lobby for our one thing then. So the other night, Jerry came over to my place and actually came over to my condo. And we sat and watched, 4 or 5 episodes of Rick and Morty to finish off season 5?
The last 5 episodes of Rick and Morty, yep.
Rick and Morty season 5 is a glorious hot mess. It is just ridiculous, out there. Like, you get to the end of the episodes and you're like, wow. But it is super revealing about Rick's past. You're learning little bits and pieces as you go, and it's like, okay, interesting. I'm very curious to see where they go when they open up season 6, whenever that is. I have no idea when that's going to happen, but
yeah. I told you each episode is weirder than the one before.
Yes, you open up with the first episode of season 5, and you're like, wow, and then it's like it gets weirder. Really? Yes, it does. It's totally wacky.
The first episode is still free to watch, and the first 3 episodes are by far the most normal of the set.
After that, all bets are off. But that's good stuff. Looking forward to whenever they decide they're going to drop the next season. Jerry, what about you?
Oh man, Disco is not dead. I've been watching Discovery. Once, as they told me, once I got past episode 3, it just took off. And I'm at the very end of season 1. Reveals. I'm just loving. I'm loving it. It is. I think Phil's one who said it's basically one great big 14 episode movie, and it is. Mm-hmm. It just once it gets into its story, it just rolls along from episode to episode in a way that I'm really enjoying. And just having a good time with. And I'm enjoying seeing some. I noticed that the engineer was the annoying sidekick from Adventures in Babysitting, so that was kind of fun to watch. You know what? The one thing I'm not seeing yet, and I hope we see more of, they've been in several space battles, and I am not seeing anywhere near enough Council Sparks.
Oh, you'll get some Council
There'll be
Sparks.
some.
Yeah. I mean, full on explosions, but not enough just like Council Sparks and somebody falls down. But no, it's been a lot of fun. It's really well done. It's action packed, but it's also a smart series. There's a lot of like people using their brains to solve problems, and that's a lot of fun. And the main character is just amazing.
Yep, it's a good story with compelling characters. I'm thoroughly happy with it.
Yeah. So Phil?
Yeah, I'm gonna just call out our NBA Knights Black Agents Session 0. That was my big gaming highlight for the week. It was very good. It was, it is a session zero's go. I think it was pretty tight. And then we got the character generation. Everybody goes to their own speed of character gen. So we got a little less done than I wanted to in the course of the evening. But it wasn't a lot less than I wanted. It's just that we'll do a little bit more, to do some group stuff. But the good part is we got some decent session zero stuff going, got a team going. Starting to understand like what you guys do before you stumble into the vampire conspiracy, which is like a big part for me to get it started. So all in all, very solid. Cool.
We also didn't have as long because we had some other non-gaming stuff to do before we started the session. And as we're going to talk about later on, we talk about campaign versus one-shots. When you're doing a campaign, taking extra time to do session zero, move at the pace of your slowest player and have a good time with it. And that's fine. I liked that. So, all right.
Cool. All right. That brings us, of course, to the feature segment.
Yes.
Gird yourself, Phil, and go.
Workshop, session zero. This is it. This is the big session. This is the one where you start to lay down the foundation for your campaign so that you have an awesome campaign. And you got to do it. You got to do it right. We're going to show you tonight in the workshop.
Don't suck.
Don't suck.
Yay.
All right. Phil?
Sorry. I endlessly amuse myself with the workshop. There's nothing written for it. I don't even know what I'm going to say. The fact that he forgot we were going to do it until Bob's like, oh, it's a workshop. And I'm like, shit. Anyway, cool. Workshop. Talking about session zero tonight, right? 2 weeks ago, we decided to take a break from our ongoing Forbidden Lands game. 46 sessions of Forbidden Lands, and take a break and play some Night's Black Agents, which we talked about previously. Surprised me that was the game we wound up selecting, but pleasantly surprised about the selection.
Yeah.
This past Sunday, just a few days ago, we did our session zero, and I thought that would be a good time for us to talk about session zero again.
Yeah. So the first time we talked about session zero was way back in episode 256 in 2017.
Like that doesn't even exist.
Yeah. And those who've been listening to us recently know that we talked briefly about Session Zero as part of our Setting Boundaries episode, which is number 390 back in 220. But that was just we just kind of touched base on it as something to set boundaries on, as opposed to doing a full deep delve. So tonight we're going to dedicate the main part of the show to Session Zero and update and expand on what we knew all the way back in 2017.
All right. And of course, in order to do that, we got to do some definitions from Phil. So...
Behold! You are in the presence of Definition Panda.
Yippers. All right, let's start with the definition. The whole topic, right? Session zero. The session that occurs after the game has been selected and before normal gameplay starts. Its goal is to prepare everyone to play the game. Right? Session zero is the on-ramp for a campaign. Like an on-ramp, its goal is to get you up to speed before you kind of get on the highway. In other words, get you up to speed before play begins. I'm going to try not to push that metaphor any further. Session zero is mostly a campaign construct. Though, and we'll talk about this before the break, you can do it in one-shots in kind of an abbreviated manner, and you probably should in some of your one-shots. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But for now, let's just consider it a campaign construct. Yeah. That phrase, prepare everyone to play the game, is pretty nebulous, and that was on purpose because different games need different things in order for everyone to be ready to play, and different groups need different things. So one of the things we are going to get into tonight is kind of coming up with what are some of those things that could be in your session zero. And then ultimately you're going to pick and choose to load up your session zero with the things you need. Yeah. And I do this like pretty much every game that I run is I kind of run through the list of possibilities of things that could be in the game and kind of pick and choose until I have built a session zero that fits the game that we're running.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, so knowing that a session zero has the goal to prepare you for the game and that different games need different things, Jerry, what kind of things might we include in a session zero?
All right, as we've been saying, your need session zero is going to depend on you, the group, and the games you're playing. The list below is going to be compiled from several of our session zero experiences. As always, this is not totally This is not the end all and be all of everything that there is out there, so you may be able to add more things in. But these are things that we think are important in our session zeros. We've created some high-level categories, which you need to ask specific things about based on your group and game. So here's a list of our categories.
Yep. Setting expectations for the game, the campaign, etc. Goal here is you need to come together as a group to have an understanding of what the campaign is going to be about, what the characters do, what the tone of the game is, etc. Why you need this, right? You need to have the shared idea of what the campaign is, the world, and etc. so that when everybody gets to character gen, you're building your characters with like the same understanding of the world and the game you're playing and stuff like that, right? If it's out of whack, you could create havoc by the time you start making characters.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Good. And that leads right into the second thing, which is we also have to decide what materials are going to be in the campaign. Our goal is to understand what books and supplements will be in the game and which ones we won't have in the game. And that's important because we want everybody to be in agreement about which supplements we're going to use. If somebody's planning on building their character based on a supplement that nobody else wants in the game, it's going to cause trouble once you finally sit down to your session zero.
Yeah, or if that supplement's like really sketch, right? Yeah. Like somebody, like if it wasn't like a WotC supplement for your 5e game, it's like, somebody whipped together, the ultimate monk or something. And yeah.
Was it the Book of 9 Swords or something like that? That had all those sewer powered swords? Yeah, that kind of thing. Yep.
Okay, next thing we need to talk about is house rules, game modes, options. The goal here is for the group to decide like which options, like if your game has different modes that it can be played in, right? Knights Black Agents does. Or if you have house rules, like if you have a tome of house rules, like we did for our Corporation game.
Yep.
We'd played Corporation a few times and we had a whole bunch of house rules that had kind of gotten made up along the way. And so we needed to kind of check on those as part of the session zero for every time we started playing. And the reason we need to do this again is alignment of expectations, right? We need to make sure that everybody knows, especially everybody knows if there's a mode for the game, like what mode are we playing in? But also like you probably are going to want to know some of those house rules because they may affect your choices in character creation and such.
Oh yeah. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is safety. You always want to have a safety discussion. The goal is to determine what safety tools are going to be used in the campaign and how to calibrate them. How to decide which one, what specifics you're going to have. And the reason why I do this is we want to ensure safe play. Let's face it, we're all there to have a good time. And so if you're doing anything in the game that's unsafe and makes somebody not have a good time, then you're not really playing a good game.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And we want to be able to push our boundaries in a lot of time, in a lot of places. So having good safety tools lets us play right up against the edge.
Yep.
Next one, setting questions. You want to have this, you want to have this in your session zero to discuss anything specific about the setting of the game. Sometimes your game's going to have a specific setting, like you're in this place. But if you're playing something like Ebron, like you can't just say, hey, we're playing Ebron, because playing in Sharn is completely different than playing in Zendrix, right? Those are like two totally, that's like playing two totally different games. And if you're playing, if you're playing Blades in the Dark, where in Duskval are we setting, where do you guys want to focus the game? So these things are worth having in your session zeros, like talking about locations, or general settings. Because again, this is all going into aligning those expectations, but it's also helping to inform character creation.
And that brings us to character creation. Because our goal here is have the players create their characters. And the reason why I do this during session zero is we need to have characters that make sense in the setting, situation of the game, and work together. Otherwise, you're going to have troubles.
Yep.
Which brings us to?
Yeah, next one's group creation. So once we have characters, we want to do some work to make our individual characters into a group. Now, sometimes that's not going to be true for different games. Again, this is why you pick and choose what you need from this list. But in a lot of cases, you're going to want to have your group. You want to kind of understand, like, how did this collection of individuals become a group? And that's going to help because this is going to answer, like, that question of the game is, like, why are you together?
Yep.
What do you do? Which is exactly where we got to in our in our discussion on Sunday. We'll talk a bit about that, I'm sure, as we go along. Jerry, what's our last category?
Well, that's what we're going to talk about tonight is connections and bonds. The goal is to have them create relationships between each other. Not just their group, but how do they know each other and what relationships do they have? And the reason why is that this is going to create a much better group dynamic, give you good plot hooks, and give the player something to kind of react to and kind of interact with in the middle of the game. So, as you mentioned, you're going to need to decide which of these categories is going to work for you in your game and whether or not you need them. And if you do, what information are you going to need to convey, or what questions do you need to ask as you go?
Exactly. So, obviously, a session 0 seems like it's a bit of work. But what if I'm super excited about a new game and I just want to run it? Do I really have to do a session 0, Phil?
Right. Do you have to do one? No. You don't have to do one.
Session 0 is hard. Oh, there's got to be a better way.
I'm going to say this, right?
I don't know if there's a better way. So
I went a long time without session 0s when I was many years old in the hobby by the time session 0 was named, even though there was always something like a session 0, but not always. Do you need to do it? No. But if you don't do it, do you run the risk of, not having players aligned and running into problems either at the beginning or later in your campaign? Yes. Yes, you do. So while it is not mandatory, highly recommended. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done a show on it.
That's
or
right.
two. So while you don't need them, highly recommend that you do them. Session 0 is all about building consensus for your campaign across a whole bunch of facets of the game, right? And the just doing this is going to increase your chance that things are going to run smoothly. And also this activity of going through and making these decisions and making your characters together and creating a group dynamic and bonds and all that is also going to increase emotional investment in the characters as you jump into the game. And I'm going to say, and I'm going to go off script for a second on this.
Yeah.
It's super important. It has been my experience over years of time. It is super important that players start really emotionally, as emotionally invested as possible in their characters in the beginning of a game, because the beginning of the game is when the campaign is the most fragile, right? Yep. Anything just a few missed sessions can kill a campaign in the early part of a campaign, right? People's interests just dry up or drift or whatever. So the more you can get everybody aligned and invested as the campaign starts, you will get that momentum that'll get you through the first couple of sessions when the story will kick in and everybody's comfortable with their characters, and then it'll then propel itself. Yep. But the more you can do to get people invested and interested heading into those first sessions, I think is going to lead to a much better session.
I've been in games where we lose that momentum right off the bat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've been in games where I have no connection to the game, the world, or the other characters because of the way the thing was put together. And it's tough to feel any investment in that character. If they die, they die.
Which is exactly what you don't want. Unless you're playing something like a DCC funnel, right? Where you're just you're rooting for survivors.
Yeah.
You want to start your game with some, interest in who these people are.
Yeah. And like Phil said, if you run into a problem where you miss a session for some reason, if you come out of session 0 and everybody's just I don't know where we are, not feeling I don't, I'm not grasping everything yet. And then session 1's supposed to come up. Somebody has to go out of town on an emergency, whatever. You scrub the session. Now you missed session 1. And it could be when you get around to trying to reschedule that. You come out of the session 0 and everybody's oh, sweet. I know exactly who my character is now. I'm ready to get this story started, and everybody's all jacked about it. And you missed that first session. It's all right, well, let's get into this thing. Let's reschedule this thing. The emotional investment is there enough to push that momentum forward and keep you driving to get that first session going. So, hugely beneficial.
I think it's really important. So having said that, let me just wrap up by saying, right, I get that, a lot of people have limited time for gaming, and that Actually getting to the table and playing is sexier and more fun than doing session 0 work. But I will say this, right? I am, as I will clarify this by the fact that I'm a project manager, so I believe in plan before execute at all times, right? So measure twice, cut once kind of guy. While it may be more fun to grab your game and get it to the table right away and skip session 0, it is not fun with having lacks of engagement, mismanaged expectations, characters that don't fit in with the group, in with each other. All of those things, right? None of that's fun. And if you can just eliminate a whole bunch of those by taking one session and getting everybody aligned, I think you're better off, right? Now, will you encounter other problems in the game? Of course you will, which is half the reason why we're here, to talk about and help you with all the other problems. But that's just gaming. But why not start on a good foundation, right? Like, why not start in a place where everybody is on board, aligned, and excited?
And I think we need to add to that two quick things. One is session 0 doesn't have to be a whole session long. You can do half a session to get session 0 out of the way, and then jump into something, even if it's just having the characters sit and chat about each other. And number 2, if you're really tight for time and don't think you're gonna have enough time for session 0 before you start your campaign, look into the notes that we talk about when we talk about how to do a one-shot, because you can use all those one-shot sheets to get your game off the ground with a half session 0. So. Which we're going to talk about in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, all of those are good points. So now that we know what goes into a session 0 and why we should have one, do you guys have any good advice for doing a session 0?
I think we do. Otherwise, we probably wouldn't have a podcast about it tonight. So here are some tips for each of the different parts of what we consider a good session 0. The biggest piece of advice we're going to give, though, regardless of each of those sections, is to have open, candid discussions and work to reach a consensus. This is the time for everybody to get a chance to speak their mind and get their voice out there, so it's going to make it fun for them. Doing this is going to ensure that everybody's on the same page as you go through your session, and that everybody starts out with a chance to have as much fun as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really everything else we're going to say here are like kind of cool things to think about, talk about, or do, but they all will fall under this umbrella of what Jerry just said. Right. So let me start off by giving a tip for setting expectations for your game, your campaign, etc. I always think, I've always done this in one form or another, but I have found that cats is my favorite tool for organizing my thoughts about this. I put the link in the show notes. We'll put the link in the notes for the episode. But cats, you can actually search for it by just, I think if you just type cats RPG, you will find this. But it simply is at its simplest level. It's just a framework for you to have your discussion. Concept is C for concept. High level, what is this game about? Right? Just tell the players, what is this game about? A is for aim. What are you trying to accomplish in the game? This is kind of akin to Jason Pitt's situation. What do you do in this game? Right? Because that's a huge, if you're playing D&D, aim is a huge important piece. You can do anything in that game.
Yep.
So what are you doing? Right? Aim is really good. T is for tone. What is the general tone of the game? I think this one's super important, especially if you're playing certain genres. You want to make sure that everybody's on board. Like, we're playing Night's Black Agents, and I wanted to make sure that everybody was really cool with somewhat dark and somewhat tense and gory, right?
Yep.
Like, not funny, right? Not a comedy.
No.
So tone, really good. And then subject matter, like what ideas might we encounter or explore, right? And this kind of borders up against some of the other things when we get to safety, but like, what is in this game, right? Like, I was like, oh, well, the concept of this game is Jason Bourne fight vampires. So I'm thinking we need to have car chases, hacking, I ran through a list of things with you guys. So I love cats, right? Like, it was part of the 200 word RPG contest, and it has, I checked my notes, because I have a OneNote notebook that has all my campaigns in it. And I've been using this framework for a few years now for campaigns, and it always does a good job of focusing my conversation. So That's my big tip for that first part, setting expectations of the game. Use the CATS framework. Jer,
All right.
What do you got next?
Next, you want to decide what materials are going to be in your campaign. You want to scrutinize what you're going to allow in, especially when it comes to supplements. Not all supplements are made equal, even if they're made by the same publisher. And a bad supplement can very quickly break a game. And sometimes you just have too many materials and they can be overwhelming. I talked before about, like, I enjoy Pathfinder first edition, but once they got to, 35, 40 character classes, and each one had, I'm not kidding, like 22 different archetypes, it just got to be too much. And I said, nope, we're just going to do these two books, and that's it. Because as a GM, it was too overwhelming to try to keep track of all the things that could happen in every single game.
Yep.
And it's okay to say that. Just, this is what we're going to play. We're just going to play this.
You can
ask
also
the players what they want.
You can also do the exact opposite, right? You could be like, this is a kitchen sink game. Like, bring whatever junk you have found in whatever recess of the internet and you can play it.
Yep.
That's a very different game.
As long as everybody on board at the table is like, okay, let's do that.
Yep.
Yeah, because I've actually seen a case, and I've had this happen to me years ago, where everybody was like, oh, okay, so I see there's like a couple supplements for the game, and like, you know, they're basically making stuff out of the core book. And then like one player like went and hunted down like some weird ass supplement on drive-through and like shows up and is like, can I play this?
Yep.
And it's like, oh, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
Like,
And that could be problems. Also, you want to discuss what you're going to do when new things come out during the campaign. You know, you're playing 5th edition, and all of a sudden there's a new supplement that comes out. What are your rules going to be for whether or not to allow it and what to do with it? And discuss the possibility of things like retroactive. You know, if a new supplement comes out, will we be able to just say, okay, this is how this ability works now, if something changes? Just discuss that. You don't have to come with firm, this is the final rule. It's just, how are we going to handle this sort of thing? But get it up front, because if people come into the game expecting to be able to play, a summoner in Pathfinder, and you tell them that we're not going to be using the Advanced Player's Handbook, then they're going to be disappointed when they try to make it a character because they won't have that character class available to them. So you want to discuss that right out the gate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Next one. House rules, game modes, options, etc. Right? If your game specifically has play modes, right? So I'm thinking like Knights Black Agents has several modes. Paranoia XP has several modes. You want to discuss this before character gen, because whatever mode you are playing in will greatly influence character gen. So you want to get that like nailed down fairly early in your session 0 to make sure people know what's going to go on. House rules, like supplements, should be scrutinized. My personal feeling, so I'll just say this is Phil's personal feeling, you may disagree. I like as few house rules as possible. Some are going to be necessary, but I will say this is my personal feeling, right? Once you've house ruled the game past a certain point, you should probably just be playing a different game.
Right.
Be angry with that as much as you want. But that's just my feeling. But for instance, like a house rule that I almost always use when I'm playing a D20 game is I don't use experience points. I level up by story.
Yep.
Right. So that's a house rule that I want to get down right away at the get-go. Like, hey, I'm just going to, I want to house rule away XP and go with story-based advancement. Is everybody cool with that? I'm figuring we'll advance at the end of every module.
Yep.
Right. Like I just, boom, right there. If you do have a lot of house rules, or any house rules, document them. Get them into a Google Doc, and share out that Google Doc with everyone, because that is going to come up at some point later, because while everybody will remember at session 0, you had this discussion, not everyone is going to remember every house rule. Yep. So having it in a central shared doc is a really good place for people to be like, oh yeah, remember, go back to the house rule doc. Like it's right there.
And that becomes even more important if your house rules are voluminous. If you need a multi-page document to keep track of them all, then you need a document so that people have a reference.
Or if you're changing a major rule in the game, that's really important. If you're even if your only house rule is one rule, if that rule changes something very heavily in the game, you need to have it not exactly how that works, because you're changing something that everybody's going to be using all the time. So.
Yeah, take us into safety, Jer.
All right. So safety is important. And there's a tendency to skip over this or breeze through it too much when you're playing with an established group, because we all know each other, and the assumption is sometimes there that we're all on the same page safety-wise. I would strongly advise, if you do nothing else during session 0, do safety. Avoid the temptation to skip over safety. Because often different games will bring up different topics, even with the same group. And it's worth exploring your lines and veils with each new game. Some of the lines and veils will never change, and you can just confirm those. We never have this, we never have that. Others are going to change due to game content. Are we going to allow this to happen? Are we going to allow that to happen? This could happen, but it can only happen off screen. We were playing about with a group of people. We're playing a game with vampires. So mind control may be a thing. If we normally don't allow mind control, maybe in this game we're going to allow it, but only to a certain extent. That's when you bring it up. And make sure everybody's on the same page. With all these safety discussions, look at the tools that you're going to use for the following areas. Be careful and talk about content warnings right off the bat. If there's things that you're going to have in the game, you got to let people know about it and maybe make some changes. Look at your boundary settings. What are the boundaries for the game? What are we going to allow? What aren't we going to allow? For example, we're playing Knights Black Agents. We're all spies. We decided to veil any sort of interrogation or torture. Just interrogation occurs off screen. This is it. We're not going to go through the thumb screws and all that kind of stuff. It's just, it occurs because it's part of the game setting, but we're not going to go into any detail. That's how we set our boundaries on it. We mentioned that you can always revoke consent. This is true in every game, but make sure you let everybody know you can always revoke consent. You're always allowed to say, I don't want that in the game, because we're there to have fun. And make sure you talk about consent as affirming. When something comes up in the game that you as a GM or as a player think might be pushing at one of those boundaries, just say, is everybody cool if I do X or Y? And people say, yeah, that's fine, or yeah, I prefer we don't do that. And you can just keep going through. There's nothing wrong with going through and constantly affirming consent. There we go. Misdirected Mark, word scramble. When we go through this. And lastly, have something in the game for de-escalation. If you've just been through a very tense scene, especially if something that's going to have up against these boundaries, right off the gate, make sure that everybody in the group knows that they're perfectly okay to say, you know what, we just had a tense scene. We're going to allow everybody to take a few minutes to de-escalate after that. And that's okay. Remember, even if you're playing the same group that you always game with, you should be reviewing safety for this particular game. It only takes a few minutes to do, and it's always worthwhile. And you'll often have a much better game out of it because people know where they are. Even if this topic's never come up in the game, it doesn't matter. Everybody feels safer and they know what they can do.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. When we get to settings, when we get into the setting part, all of that, right? Some games are going to have built-in settings, right? Some games will just tell you, like, you play in this city, you do this thing. Other games are going to leave that up to the GM and the group to figure out. Again, establish where your game is going to take place before character gen. Some people will definitely want to have some flavor about their character based on where the game is taking place. Sometimes this affects character choices mechanically. Sometimes it's going to affect it narratively based on what's going on. Senda's got a story, and I'll just paraphrase it really quickly. But like somebody made like a water wizard, and then like they found out after the game started, like the whole thing took place in a desert. Yeah, right? And it's just like wah wah, like sad trombone your character, right?
Yeah.
Like you definitely don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
Your location discussion also is going to vary, right? Sometimes your location is going to be very specific. So if you're playing like the Hood, the game focuses basically on your neighborhood, which you're going to build as part of the beginning of the game. But if you're playing Star Trek Adventures, your location might be the Alpha Quadrant.
Yeah.
Which is enormous, right? But it's gonna. So what I'm saying is the precision of your location discussion is going to have a lot to do with what the setting in your game is about, right? If travel is fast and cheap, you don't have to be super precise about your locations, right? The Alpha Quadrant is a plenty good description for a Star Trek Adventures game. It rules out the beta quadrant and the delta quadrant and says you're in the alpha quadrant. That says a lot for the game.
Mm-hmm.
If travel is slower or less frequent, then you're going to want to be more precise, right? So in the hood, like, where is this? What city is your neighborhood in? And if, depending on the size of your city, where in the city is that neighborhood? Yep. Because that will also have an effect, right? It's the same discussion, just a smaller scope. If your location is a larger area, get a wish list from characters of places they'd like to see in the upcoming game. So we're playing NBA, Night's Black Agents. We're going to play it with the default setting, which is in Europe. So I just asked everybody at the table, I'm like, give me a European city you'd like to see come up in this game. I don't know when it's going to come up in the game. I'm not going to rush to jam them all in the first like session or two, but I will have a list that, you know, as I'm building out the game, like, you know, this is where, you know, I think we had some easy ones like Paris and London, but Bob, what did you pick?
I think I picked,
was it Belgrade?
Belgrade. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Amsterdam.
And Jerry hit Amsterdam. And I was like, cool. These are like, you know, these like, this is fun. And also as a GM, it pushes me out of my comfort zone. Like, I've been to Paris. So I like, of course I'm putting Paris in the game because like it's a city I've actually been in. But the other picks are going to force me to go do some research, which is great because there's a chapter in the book in NBA about how to like research a city. But it's cool because I will pull them in. And again, also creates emotional investment because also, Bob, I think you picked Belgrade because your character, your character background is like Serbian, yeah, it's Serbian. So it's like cool. Like this all builds onto each other. All right. Talk about character creation, Jer.
All right. Excuse me. We're fans of doing character gen as a group. And this is always good to do during Section 0. Because it's going to allow the players to design their characters to work as a group. And it allows you to fill in your gaps and your needs. In Night's Black Agents, this is especially important. You want to make sure that all of the investigative skills and almost every skill is covered by at least one other person and one person in the game. And therefore, you also have everybody present to talk about the characters they want to design, what overlaps there's going to be, but also everybody's there to talk about the need for rule change or ruling to be clarified. Everybody gets to see and know the other characters there. You know what everybody's abilities are and what they can do. I've been in games where I've sat at a table with players and it's obvious that half the players there really don't know what the other characters in the group are capable of doing. And so every encounter is people fumbling around with what are our character resources in that. When you build yourself as a group together, everybody knows what everybody else has got and gives you a chance to build on things. And this goes to the next part, which lets you build strong ties and connections to each other. And if you're going to have secrets, in most games, it's better to just get those secrets out in the open that the players know them, but the characters don't. Because it will allow all the players to play those secrets better.
Oh, boy, do I hate that, what you call it? Do I hate that hiding secrets from other players?
We in our Vaesen campaign, everybody in Vaesen has a dark secret, but we told them all out front, and it's been a lot of fun because we have characters that are interacting with each other right off the bat, that what they're going to be doing is going to be pushing up against another character's secret, which is going to give that other character a lot of role-playing opportunity to do things, and gives us a chance to react to it in such a way that we're not looking at the player as if, oh, you're being a jerk. No, it's, oh, I understand as a player why your character is doing this. My character does it, and now we're going to have some fun role-playing interaction because we know what those boundaries, those secrets are. Doing this as a group is often going to take longer, but it's worth it. And I want to remind you, do this all at the same pace with the GM guiding the process. As a player, resist the urge to just jump ahead of where everybody else is in the generation process. If you've got 5 players and 3 of them are still assigning stats, don't jump ahead yourself to the skill section. Wait for them to catch up so that you can all do skills next. Because it allows the GM, first of all, to talk about this is the next step. Plus, it allows all the players to kind of talk about, interact with what's going on with just that section of the character. Because you might have somebody who's taking a long time because they've got analysis paralysis. They're not sure what to do next. But having other players there to talk to and bounce ideas off of will give them an idea of what they want to do with their character. So as a player, even if you're done, just wait for the next section. Don't go flipping ahead to be ahead of everybody else. Do it together.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's an urge, and I mean, I've had some players who show up with like a fully completed character, but like part of it is like, as you hear people making decisions, you may want to like, change and fix some things about your character. Like it's, part of the reason why like you do it cooperatively. So yeah. And again, if you're playing something with playbooks or something, this isn't quite like you're pretty much gonna do it together. But still.
This is exactly what happened. Like, I'm a fast reader. I just read very fast. And so we were doing our characters. I finished with my first set of skill points well before the person sitting next to me. I had all 20 of my skill points spent when they were still spending like their first 10. And the thing is, I thought I had my character down pat, and then they were asking some questions, and I realized, oh, we've got a lot of overlap. Now I should shift some of my points around. And I just waited as we went. Other players did the same thing, and we had better characters at the end because we found out that I thought maybe I should really have a point here and a point here and a point here. Like, oh no, this person's got 2 points in each of those. I don't need any of them, so I can get rid of the ones I was just taking just to make sure we were covered, and that made it better for both of us. And because sometimes as players, especially if you're trying to work as a group, you will do things with your character just because you want to make sure that base is covered. And you find out, oh no, there are 2 other people in the group who not only have that base covered, but they're specializing in it. You can just focus on something else that you want. Or they may themselves say, I'm not sure if I want to take this skill or this skill. And you can say, oh, well, I'm taking this skill. Great. Then that helps their analysis paralysis because you're talking back and forth. It's always good to work together as a group at the same pace.
Yep. 100% agree.
Yep.
Coming off of character creation over to group creation, I have for the longest time been a fan of the Fear the Boot group template. I don't actually use the template much anymore. I've used it in the past. But I love the premise of it, which is, in essence, players need to be able to answer a single question about their group. Why are you all a group, and why do you stay together?
Yep.
Right? Especially like when you see these, like, I don't want to be stereotypical, but I'm going to be stereotypical, right? You see these like D&D games with like, I'm the tiefling assassin. And then there's like, I'm a lawful good paladin. Cool. Explain to me how this works. I'm not going to push on you and tell you it doesn't work. I just need you to tell me how it does work.
Yep.
Like, are they in love with each other? Like, are they going to hate kiss later because that's awesome? Like,
but if
whatever it is.
Oh no, they hate each other with the passion of 1,000 burning suns, and every opportunity they get, they're going to try and just kill each other. Well, then no, this isn't going to work. We're not going to play that.
Clint and Tasselhoff don't dislike each other. They bicker, but they love each other, right? Like
Karaman and Raistlin.
Yes, it's a great one, right?
Like the big dumb fighter and the super smart evil wizard.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
They're
he's
brothers.
awful. He's awful to Karaman, right? And but again, the point being is, and because I don't want to tell players like, oh, you have to make like this harmonious, boring group, but I need you to be able to explain how this is a group. Like,
friction and conflict is good to a certain point.
Yes. Yeah, if you're drawing guns on each other in the middle of your spacecraft, your Firefly, as Bob will remember, you've got some problems.
Clearly have to discuss this out of character.
We're gonna have a breakdown mid-game. Yes. That actually happened to Bob and I. May talk about it in the after show, but we'll see. So anyway, that question to me is key, and the Fear the Boot template's a nice way to kind of like lead you into that question, but you can just ask that question. But it's really important because you want the group concept, first of all, to be inclusive, right? Every player at the table needs to have a reason to be part of the group and to be included in the group. You don't want to be like, we're like, the 4 of us are cool, but we tolerate Jerry. Like, that's not, I mean, unless that's worked out with consent, that's not going to be fun for Jerry. If it's a shtick that you're building into the game, that's great. Like, do your thing. But I think we all know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
We want it to be inclusive. We want everybody to be part of the group. And we need the dynamic to be durable. right? We need a concept that's going to survive past the first adventure, right? Like like going back to Dragonlance, right? Like we know no matter what, Caraman's not walking out on Raceland. Like all the way, like when he turns full evil, Caraman's still there. Raceland walks out on Caraman, but that's a different story. But anyway, that's what you call it. So that part's important, right? And it is entirely possible to make cool characters and put them together as a shitty group.
Yeah. Let's be honest. Raceland knows that everybody else at the party are just his minions. So
yeah.
Right. Yes. All right. Yeah. So, and I'll say, I've been in games where, both as a player and as a GM, where you look around the table and goes, there is no reason why these people are adventuring together. Right. That the players have made absolutely zero effort to tie their characters in. All of them came in with, this is my unique special character, and as a result, the game dies. As a GM, I'll be running this game, and there have actually been times where I've stopped thinking, like, all right, I need you all to sit down and tell me, why are you adventuring together? And if they can't answer that question, we're like, all right, when this adventure's over, we're going to do a new campaign. Because it just kills the campaign. Yeah. Because you're constantly coming up with things where people are pushing against each other and so on. It's amazing to see it. And I'll tell you who is probably the best person I've ever gamed with, as far as I'm going to have a hook that's going to bring my character into this group and also drag the people. And that is Mr. Everson sitting there. I've been in so many campaigns where he has come in as a player mid-game, and within 5 minutes has found a way to do a mini session 0 with him and the rest of the group to get us into the group. It's been pretty amazing.
Was it that many? Like once?
Yeah.
Right? Like
No, I've been in a couple of them with you where you've come in, or where we sat down. Maybe it's where I've come in, but you've made it very easy to tie characters together very quickly. So I'm just going to say, if you get a chance to play with Mr. Everson, it works.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, in general, you should get to play a game with Bob. I'm spoiled. Yeah. I've gotten like 20 years of playing games with Bob. Yeah. But other people have also raved about playing games with Bob.
Am I wrong, Phil?
I try to be.
No, not in the least.
Yeah.
Not in the least. Bob's a staple at almost every one of my tables.
Yep.
It's the main reason I won't run Cartel yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just waiting for Bob to come around. He hasn't been hot on it, so I've just been like, I'll hold off on it. At some point, Bob, I'm just hoping Bob will be in a mood, and I'll be like, cool, I'm pulling out Cartel. We're playing.
You're gonna catch me where I'm like, fuck everybody. I want to kill them all.
I'm patient, man. I'm patient. I'll wait. Patient, all right. I'll do it. Anyway, the bottom line is, get your characters formed into a group. Like, make this shit happen. Figure out why you're a group. Like, yes, we all put up with we all put up with, the short guy who keeps selling us out, but he owns the spaceship. So like, that's why we keep him around.
Yep.
There's your Farscape reference for the evening. All right, Jerry, tell me about connections and bonds.
Well, some games are lucky. You're going to have this built in. You just follow procedures. Most PBTA games are going to have some sort of bonds right with the characters. As you build your characters, part of the character building is going to be the ties you have to one or more of the characters in the group. Everything from Dungeon World to Masks have some link, so by the time you're done creating your character, you've got some ties to the players in the group. But if your game does not have this kind of mechanic, you can use other external rules you can simply import. And one of my favorites are the backstory cards by Ryan Macklin.
Ryan fucking Macklin from the
Ryan
internet.
fucking Macklin, yes, from the internet. I love me some backstory cards. It doesn't take much to adapt them to any game. It doesn't have its own connections rules. What I like about the backstory cards is you draw a card, and it gives a situation from the past, but doesn't just address that character. It'll say things like, that character and the character 2 spaces to the left of them in the table. Both of you met while you were both trying to steal the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll ask a question like, what was it you were trying to steal? And why did the other person impress you? So it's not just about how cool your character is. It's why are you bonded to this other character? And I like those kinds of things because, there are other tables and charts and games that do the same kind of thing. But something about backstory and group coherency is almost always works best if you don't talk about how cool your character is. You find a way to make it how cool somebody else's character is and why you're tied in with them, why you don't like them, why you want to hate kiss them later on. All of that can be tied in. Maybe the two of you are both after the same lover, and now that lover's gone, and now you have this rivalry about everything else. But in reality, you respect them.
Yeah,
that makes for a great game. You're gonna have some stuff going on with that. So build on that.
Yeah, and just to wrap that thought up, whenever you're doing something where you're ascribing something to another character, always make sure that you get consent from that player as well. If that player really just isn't vibing with that idea, then don't do it. Go with something else. If they're absolutely vehemently against it, then definitely find something. Don't force something on another player character when they're not, fully on board with it. So, all right. So, of course, and I think we have partially done this before, I'm sure we could do shows on just about every one of these individual topics that we've been giving tips on.
Oh, yeah.
But before we go to break, Phil, can you do session zeros for a one-shot, like at a convention or a game day?
Yeah, you totally can, right? With a standard 4-hour slot, right, you do not want to spend a whole session, obviously, doing a session zero, but can you spend a little time and hit all the high notes? You absolutely can. So if we're looking at the list that we've been working from, let's first group up all the things that if you're running a one-shot, you, the GM, have control of, right? Which is decide on what materials are in the campaign, in this case, what materials are in the one-shot, house rules, setting questions, and group creation, right? You don't need to have a discussion about these things. You can just hard code them into your session, right? This is, you are a group of art thieves in Vienna. Bam. That's your group creation. That's your setting, nailed down, right? Yep. So you don't even have to worry about those. Take those right off the table. You're just hard coding those right into your game and your game description.
I want to just interject here real quick.
Yeah.
It may be interesting. I don't know if this would be a popular thing, but I'd be curious to have someone do it as an experiment. Have a session, a 4-hour slot at a con, which is, have you never done a session zero? Come to this 4-hour slot. We're going to do a session zero and show you how it's done. So you just sit there. The whole 4-hour slot is a session zero for a game that obviously is never going to get played, but it's like a session zero training camp.
I feel like that's a lot of massage for no happy ending there.
I'm just
saying,
I
know what you're after.
It's an interesting idea.
There's a way to do that. That is literally what I used to do when I did D&D 3rd edition when it first came out at the store. Is I did character generation and group generation 4 weeks in a row, and all I did was sit down and show people how to build characters and then how to build a group out of that, and how to build your characters. And then after 4 weeks, I then told everybody, okay, anybody who wants to come back, we'll be running a D&D game, which is how I unfortunately ended up with running a 16-player D&D game for a couple of weeks, because I didn't actually expect that many players to show up. But
I would do it as a
group
workshop.
worked. The group worked.
So I would do it as an actual workshop, right? Like a thing where, hey, we're going to workshop a session zero. Like if you've never done one before, this is a hands-on, like we're going to make up a campaign and we're all going to discuss it and go through. Yeah. I wouldn't do it as an actual scheduled session because I think,
however you want to define it, but it's an interesting idea for,
Yeah, absolutely. Session zero workshop. Never done a session zero. Let's talk about how to make it exciting.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So I covered a bunch of things that you just don't have to cover, right? So let's those are done. Jerry, what about character gen?
All right. So for character gen, connections, and bonds, you're going to have to put those together for your one shot depending on the game. For any game, you can do pre-gens, but games like PBTA assume that you're going to already build the character at the table, and you have to plan that into your game. For the pre-gens, though, you can just make the characters and create the bonds, just hand them out. If you're doing this at the table, just make sure you account for this at the start of your game. And if you're playing a one-shot, come ready to make quick decisions as the player. When you're going to do this character gen, don't be the player sitting there by taking 5 minutes to pick out a class or a skill or a name. In campaign play, it's perfectly acceptable. But if you're coming to play a game at a one-shot, come prepared to, okay, I want to play the martial character. These are my 3 choices. Okay, I'm taking this one. And if you're coming to play at a one-shot and you're going to be part of a small session zero, if you're having trouble, make a choice. Don't be afraid to table source suggestions. Hey, listen, I'm not really sure what to do here. Anybody have a suggestion? They might just give you some ideas you can then build off of. But the important thing is that when you're doing a character gen for a one-shot, you've got to keep it fairly quick. Your session 0 for a one-shot shouldn't take 2 hours.
Yeah. And to flip that a little bit, if
Yep.
you're at the table for a one-shot and it looks like another player is having trouble making a decision, maybe you can politely offer, do you need help making a choice here? Are you having difficulty with something? Because they may not be a very outgoing person. They may not be normally willing to say, hey, I'm having trouble here. Can you give me a hand? But if somebody offers it, they go, oh, yeah. Try and be helpful to the, don't force yourself on them, but,
No.
But offer it up and see if they need a hand.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
All right. So, if character gen is a thing that either you're going to control or do at the table, then there are 2 things that are absolutely worth doing at the start of your game, right? So this is your one-shot session 0. Setting expectations for the game. Do cats, right?
Yes.
Do a quick cats, couple bullet points under each topic. Boom, just convey the whole thing out to the table. Make sure everybody's on board. And safety. Like Jerry said before, just don't do a game without safety. Take a few minutes to establish your safety tools, set some lines and veils, quick review your tools with everybody. I have these baked into all of my prep for one-shots.
Yep.
Always make sure that I have this so that I can explain as I'm teaching a game, especially if it's a game I've written where people aren't familiar with what it is. I'm absolutely doing something like cats if it's not cats itself, and I'm always doing safety.
Yeah.
Even if my safety is just going to be, hey, let's do a couple quick lines and veils, and here's an X card. It's totally fine. Some games, like Hydra Hackers, I often tell people a little content warning, and then I'm like, hey, let's set some lines and veils. Let's do an X card. I'm not anticipating us pushing any boundaries tonight, but if we do, we have tools on the table just in case.
Yep.
Other things like Turning Point, like I'm going to slow down a little and be like, and let me show you our array of tools here, because this game runs a higher chance that we're going to bump into something emotionally. But I just do those things, right? That quick setting expectations is going to help everybody get aligned to what's going on in the game. And then your safety check, and then get going, start running your one shot.
Yep. All right. So that's our overview of session 0. We're going to take a quick break and check with the chat room and see what questions they have. But first, Bob is going to tell us about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
Hey, we're going to talk about Bone, Stone, and Obsidian. Jesse and Robert take monthly deep dives into the Dark Sun setting and discuss it across all editions of D&D. Dark Sun's one of those settings that, I don't know, I feel like you either love it or you hate it.
Love it.
I find it fascinating.
Me too.
I've never had a chance to actually play it, but I find it fascinating, and I would love to sit down at the table and play some Dark Sun with some people.
I would very much also jump into that. I would prefer to play it in a more modern D&D. I would love like a 5e.
Yeah.
Like if somebody has got a 5e Dark Sun conversion, I've always been infatuated with the artwork because Brahm.
Oh, yeah.
And I love Brahm's artwork. I've loved his White Wolf artwork. I think the artwork for Dark Sun is amazing.
Yeah. And then Jesse and Robert do a really nice job. Yeah. Again, like us, they're not like a 101. They're like, a 301 level class. Like they're going deep.
Yeah. Who's that? Oh, yeah.
All right. So chat room. Got a lot of questions going on here. Blake Ryan made a comment. If it's a tutorial, it's practical, and if it's a panel, it's theory. Is that kind of a good breakdown?
Yeah, I mean that's not bad.
How you would do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, that thought just came to my head. Like that would be interesting to do a session 0 kind of a tutorial, if you will. But yeah, it makes sense more to make it as a workshop kind of a thing where we're gonna work through it with that goal in mind, rather than to be like, because no matter how explicit you make it in a description, there's always going to be somebody that's going to think like this is a game session where we're going to play a game, and it's like, oh no, this is not an actual game. We're just doing a session 0 to do a session 0, and that's all you're going to get out of this. And you don't want to disappoint anybody at the table with that. So
No, you're definitely going to be upfront about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be an interesting. I would be very interested in sitting on something like that, just to show people.
I would say, depending on the con, there's no reason you couldn't do a panel or a tutorial or whatever they call it when you go in and try something. Workshop. You do a workshop on that, and then simply tell everybody, listen, the next 4-hour session, I'm here. If you guys want to try a one shot, I'm prepared to run something for you, or have that planned. Especially at one of the smaller cons where it's easy enough to just get us a table side and just say, listen, part of this is going to be, if you guys have the slot open after this, we're going to build characters for 4 hours, and then I'll run a 4-hour session or something. I would, that's easy enough to do. I've done that at pickup games at a lot of different small cons. So it'll be fun to try. So,
yeah,
just another option.
Yeah, it's possible. You could do something like that with a long, what is it? Down, not Metatopia, DexCon and those, why can't I think of the other one? There's 3 of them.
Oh, geez.
DexCon,
Metatopia.
Yeah, the other one. Where's Rob when you need him?
Yeah.
Anyway, they have long cons where they have multiple sessions over the course of a day or two.
Yeah.
Yep.
And one could do a session a more in-depth session 0 as part of one of those. Again, I think that a workshop demo kind of thing for it is actually really cool, especially if no one's ever run a full session 0 before, because it is a powerful tool. But like I said, it is very much a campaign tool. The mini one that you do in a one shot is nice, but it's really just to kind of get everybody on board, and you really want to just kick into the action as fast as possible.
Yeah.
But for a campaign, I think they're invaluable, and you should take your time to do them. And I have no problem when we dedicate a whole evening to getting session 0 done.
Yeah.
For an upcoming campaign.
Absolutely. Excuse me. Sorry. Hang on.
Yeah, get a little water. Klimt, are you? I'll just ask you really quickly before we jump back in. Are you recording from the house, or are you recording from the condo?
It's still at the house. Yeah, the condo's not.
You have not transferred.
Yeah, this is This is still a studio, whatever.
Okay, the official transfer of the studio. I transferred my studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we're not doing the show on the 7th, is so that I can set up the new studio space. And so this stays here. This will be one of the last things that gets broken down, is the equipment that I run the show off of. Everything else in this room will be gone.
Right, so I need to just check this thing. Your move is on the 4th.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Good. All right, I just had a thought. I need to write myself a thing.
Make yourself a note.
Okay. I'm writing myself a note right now before we jump into the next session.
Yeah, while you're writing, I will get ready to jump us back in, because we're about to go into the second part of this particular workshop, which is the roundtable discussion, which I'm sure everybody is familiar with the format. We're going to do 3 questions, starting with this one.
Yes, question number 1. In campaigns that you have played in or campaigns that you run, answers can be different. Was there a formal session 0? All the time, sometimes, rarely, never? You don't have to do over your entire career of gaming, because you, much like myself, you are old bastards. And of course, it was never past a certain point. It didn't happen. Yeah. But
no.
I think you all know where I'm going with this question. Take it, Jer.
I think today it's an always. If I'm going to take the time to run a campaign, I want a group that works together. If I'm running a campaign, I want them to be together. I've seen groups fall apart because we don't do a good session 0. And I'll be honest, I'll caveat that with saying, if the session 0 goes badly, I have canceled the campaign. I've gotten to the end of a night and said, this group is not going to work well together. You don't seem to be aligning well. This is not the game for you. You find out that half the group wants to run super mechanical dungeon crawl, and the other half of the group wants to have exploration and kissing and doesn't want to go in the dungeons at all, and it causes a problem. And it's just not going to work. And that's okay. That's time to do a different game. As far as play, I can't think of the last time I played in a campaign that didn't have some sort of session zero. Even if the session zero was only like half the night because we were designing simple characters. When we played Fate, I think we spent 2 hours designing characters and doing session zero, but we hit on all the upper topics there because there wasn't that much to pick from. And not that Fate isn't complicated. There's not a lot on your character sheet you have to pick from. So it was, assign your stats, that took us 5 minutes. Talk about your backgrounds, that took us 25 minutes. Pick your aspects, that took us another half hour. And then we're going to do our group building, and that took us another half hour. We were ready to play. And that worked really well. So I would say these days, I think we do session zeros in almost everything. The only time I haven't seen session zeros have been for one-shots, and some of the campaigns I've played at stores where the GM really wants to get the game going, so we design characters in half an hour and then go from there. I think that's the only time that I haven't seen much of a session zero going in. But that's because we're playing with very disparate groups that kind of build on each other. That'd be about it. Bob?
Yeah, like Jerry, I can't think in recent memory of anything that I've played that didn't have some kind of a session zero attached to it. Back when I used to run stuff, we never did session zeros. We all just were like, hey, let's play this. And we just kind of jumped in and we did our thing. And some of it really showed when we got deeper into it. But yeah, it's almost ubiquitous now. I can't think of anything that hasn't had one. What about you, Phil?
Yeah, I'm laughing when you said that because
you've been in like 90%, 95%.
We run so many good games nowadays, but it is literally run on top of the piles of bones that we sit upon from all the failed and half-assed campaigns.
We sit triumphant upon the corpses of many, many dead campaigns.
I have learned many things, but I have left many bodies in my wake. Yeah. For a number of years, I've been doing session zeros. I think as soon as I understood what a session zero was, I was like, shit, man, we should be doing that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, by career, I'm a project manager, right? So, in fact, when I was looking through the 2017 notes from episode 256, there were a lot of project management references in there because they were very much from a time where I was doing a lot of comparison between stuff I knew in project management to stuff I knew in GMing. And there is a lot of overlap with those. So yeah, as soon as I knew what it was, I was doing it. Before then, was I doing it? Not really. I was doing character gen. Yeah. I've always been a fan of character gen together, not apart. I don't really like when I have for many years not liked people showing up with characters. Don't show up to my game with your pre-made character, because not that I don't trust you, but I don't like when people bring disparate characters. Bring your shit together, share your ideas and build your characters. So I think early on in my GMing career, all of my session zeros were basically the character gen part, where a lot of these questions would come out informally, oh, what city are we going to be in? Oh, good question. We should probably talk about that, right? The thing about my session zeros now is they're structured. They're like a little meeting, right? Before we get to character gen, I run it like a little meeting where I have it all written down, and I kind of go through and ask people questions and get consensus and those kinds of things. Whereas before, some of that shit happened before the game. Some of it happened people showing up with supplements right at the last minute, all of that nonsense. So I've been very good about it. I've been diligent about it because I totally believe in session zero. I haven't played as a player in a while, but I just did a session zero with Gator for his for an upcoming Numenera campaign. So we totally did a session zero. Gator's version of Cats, which was pretty good. Not quite the same way I run Cats, but again, I don't think you have to run it a particular way. The important part is just that like you hit those highlights. So it was perfectly fine. But it was good. It was nice to be in a session that had that had some of that discussion leading up to it.
I like session 0, but I don't like cats, so we're gonna do dogs.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll figure something out for
You
that.
gotta make some. You gotta fill in that analogy, but sure, I'm with you.
Destiny, origin, group dynamics, and setting.
Off the top of your head.
Nicely done, Jared.
All
Nicely
right,
done.
well played.
Thank you. That's why I'm the opposite of Phil. I do things off the cuff more than I do long planning. It doesn't always work out as well, though. So, well, there you go. Gator's version of Cats is Gator.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Now we got to make that acronym. We'll do that in the after show.
Yeah. Yes, we will. All right, question 2. For one shots that you've played a run in, was there ever a session 0?
Yeah, I totally can't recall clearly. I know there's been a few that have had the abbreviated session 0E type stuff. But man, it's been a long time since I've played a one shot. A long time, because that's back in the con days. And that was like that was like 40 years ago, right? I mean,
before times.
That was before March of 2020, so that's like 97,000 weeks, right?
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. It's sad, but yeah.
Before COVID.
Think back on the before times and remember. What about you, Phil?
Yeah. So in ones that I've played occasionally, right? I think it's been hit and miss. Some people do it. Some people do it. The Gauntlet community is exceptionally good at this. Like when I've done Gauntlet Con and stuff, like they're really good at this kind of they're also big fans of Cats. In fact, I think that's where I learned it was from Gauntlet. So like Gauntlet games like tend to be really have really good kind of mini zeros for those one shots. So I really appreciate those things. When I do it too. I like I do a mini zero as well. I think it helps. Especially because I want everyone to have a good time. So I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Like, no, it's never fun when somebody's like, when 3 people at the table are all on the same page and the last person like is off. I want them all. I love consensus. Yeah. I love consensus. I'm making also, it's good. You can't see with this camera. You can't see all the hand gestures I'm making under the camera, but I love consensus. Anyway, so yeah, I've had it, like I said, in certain places I've had it. And I definitely, when I run games, I put a mini zero in. How about you, Jer?
Playing, it depends on the game. Most of our home one shots we've done have had some sort of session 0, even if it's just half an hour of obviously going over safety first, and then some sort of group tie-in. The advantage is that if you do this often enough with the same group, even for a one-shot, everybody kind of slides into that session. So sometimes you'll have some overlap where while you're building your characters, you're doing the group dynamic thing as well. At cons, as a player, very rarely have I had a session 0 unless it's a PBTA game. As far as running one-shots, I always try to do some sort of session 0. When I do it at a con, just like Phil, I plan out some time just to do the basics: safety, expectations, and tone. If I'm talking about a game that we're designing, I'll still go over, what are we expecting out of this game, but always do safety. And if I provide some sort of pre-gens, like when I do stuff for Savage Sundays, I always have some sort of link between each character and at least 2 other characters written in to the character description, so that they've already got a tie-in. But then I encourage the players to add more. And we've even experimented with some relationship cards, backstory cards, whatever, while they're just kind of going over their characters, so that they all have a chance to do some sort of tie-in as well, after we go over safety. So even with pre-gens, when I'm running something, I want to have some sort of link with the party, because it makes it go better. All right.
Cool. So question 3. Tell us about an enjoyable session 0 activity that really helped to enhance a game, and what made it so helpful.
So I was thinking about our Masks game, Bob, where we did that modified microscope session.
Yep.
And we built out the comic book history of our setting.
That was brilliant. I loved it.
So the things that we put into it was like we had the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Steel Age, and the Modern Age of like in our game. And we did each section one at a time. And I had I think I had come up with like a couple things that we had to do, like who were the important heroes of that time?
Yep.
Who were the important villains? A couple things about the city, and then like name a place or two in the city. And then the last one was, what was the mini series that ran?
Event.
Yeah, what was the big event in that time period? And we spent a whole session doing that. We were at Panera, I remember.
Yep.
We spent a whole session going over that. You, Tony, Glenn, and I.
Index cards.
Covered with index cards, and then I took all of it and I took pictures of all of it and then put it all into Google Docs. But that history made everything about our everything that happened in our game was initially laid out on that table. Your character choice, Tony's character choice, they were and Glenn's actually. Yep. All three of your characters were tied to things on that table. Our major story arc came from the ideas that were put down in that table about Tesla.
Yep.
What was it? Tesla at war with the 25th century.
Yep.
Fuck, that was really good. Now that I'm just thinking about it.
Yep.
That was a great but it was game. So much fun, and it was necessary because we were playing I felt it was necessary because we were playing a comic book game, and one of those things you need in comic books is you need you need it to feel like a comic book universe. Yeah. But it was so many good things came out of that activity. I'm kind of still blown away. Everything, our masking would not have been the same had we not done that activity first.
Definitely not.
So to me, that was a ton of fun.
Yep.
It was totally fun to do. It was enjoyable. And it made such a difference, in playing the game.
Absolutely.
How about you, Jer?
I think using the backstory cards for FFG Star Wars. It was the first time I was going to run a full campaign in Genesis. It was the first time I was going to run Star Wars with this group of players. And I think it was also the first time I ran a sci-fi game with this group of players. And so we used the backstory cards. And actually I used 2 for each player. So they all had one go around the table. We did a second time. Because with 6 players, we had enough people to have enough bonds back and forth. And by the time we were done, we had a group of heroes with legitimate reasons to stick together and common goals and some in-jokes right from the start. And what was nice was because each time it was 2 or more players building the backstory together, there was input on both sides. And it also meant that we ended up tying together players who don't normally form bonds during groups. When you have 6 players, it's often that you'll have these 2 are always doing things together and these 2 are always doing things together. And so this time we had this player and this player doing something, especially since the characters themselves would probably never have had a reason initially to be together unless you forced it. The cards created a situation where it became obvious. And one of those was the, what is one thing, just the doctor, ended up picking the artist / pilot was the other character involved, and it was, that both of you were trying to steal something. Well, the doctor was trying to steal medical equipment because, it was going to be something that he could use to supply the rebellion, and the artist was trying to steal medical equipment because it was high quality steel that she could use to make her abstract artists things. And then they both got caught at the same time. And they talked about how this person how they helped each other out and what they did to escape. It became a little 4 or 5 minute dialogue back and forth about what they did to escape the Empire on their way out. By the time we were done, we're yes, now we know why these 2 are adventuring together, because they have this whole shared history that would not have otherwise been there. And those 2 actually formed kind of the core of the party for the initial part of it. And the whole thing was like that. Everybody had ties together. Yeah. So,
and sometimes that's all it takes is that one little spark, couple of words that triggers an idea, a thought, and then all of a sudden it builds that connection that ends up being a core a core piece of the bond between these people, and it goes a long way. So love that stuff.
Well, just real quick, I want to mention what needs to be careful of, and this is something that you can learn a lot with your players. Was one of the cards was player A knows player B knows 2 rumors about player A. They're both true, one positive, one negative, but both players have to agree on them. And that was the important part, was that the second player couldn't just make stuff up off the top of their head and force the player into it.
Yeah.
But it ended up being really interesting because player B gave player A 2 rumors about them, one positive, one negative, that were true. And they were basically character descriptions. And the other player was like, oh, I like both of those. I never would have thought of either one. And, yes, this is something like my character always tells people that he hates country music, but secretly he loves country music and won't tell anybody about it. Great, that's fine, that works well. I can't remember what the other one was, but because it was something that the initial player wouldn't have thought of, but was happy to have come to them, now it built a really good character. And of course, the other question is, why does player B know these rumors? That's the other part of it. It's fun. So, yeah. But just make sure that you're never forcing something on another player that they don't want for their character.
Always get consent.
Always get consent. Thank you. There you go, Bob.
So I looked at this question and I was trying to think. I looked at Phil and Jerry's answers in the notes, and I was trying to think of other instances with something similar. And honestly, the masks one, that microscope thing, I think there's a ton of different games that I would like to sit down and do a microscope session 0 build for, that I think would go a long way toward making a really rich background for the world that you live in. Loved how that turned out for us. And then tangenting off of Jerry's, we did a backstory cards thing in one of our session 0s for, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Sprawl. Mm-hmm. But it may have been the other one. What was the other one that was like the Sprawl? But there's a couple of different like cyberpunky things that we tried, but maybe it was the Veil. I don't know.
No, was it Headspace?
Headspace. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the Sprawl though. But okay. Yeah, we did that. We did that whole thing, and it was super helpful in not only making the connections, but also backstory cards has that element of helping to deepen your own character, not just to create those connections between multiple characters, but sometimes the side effect, maybe not even related to that specific element that ties those two together, but the conversation around that can help to deepen the background of that character. So I love that kind of stuff. That's all good stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't always do it because I don't always either don't have a need, or like, for instance, like Knights Black Agents, I want to do backstory, but like I don't want to do microscope because I don't really want you knowing.
Microscope for the NBA game would have been a completely different animal. Like we've the world backgroundy stuff, really, other than modern day type stuff and some of the constrictions we put on that. It's got its own kind of built-in, like, you got the Conspiramen and the vampire stuff. I think sitting down and doing a microscopy session for something like that would probably be overkill or unnecessary. That's kind of redundant, but in any event, even redundant was redundant. That's all right. That is our fresh look at the session 0, nearly 200 episodes later from the first time we did it.
Yeah. Hey, look, we hope that as you start to run new games, that you will put some of this advice to use. Like, hope that, give it a listen, figure out what pieces you need to put together for your ultimate session 0.
All right, we're going to check in one more time the chat room, and then we're going to head off to the conversation corner. So, Bob, what's in the chat room tonight?
Senda took a shot. Yeah, they're a little quiet for this particular segment, which is fine. Senda took a shot at the acronym for GATOR, giving action, tempo, oral rapscallions. I'm not sure that equates to concept, aim, tone, subject matter.
That sounds like an after show kind of character.
It does sound a little after showy, but
yeah.
I'm sure we'll come up with something interesting for that. But yeah, let's just bounce right on into the convo like this. Doodly doodly doo. Don't soundbite that, Rob. Now he's going to soundbite it.
Definitely.
So, of course, I finished up my rewatch of Season 2 of Discovery. Super enjoyable. Getting ready to fire up Season 3 soon. Lower Decks Season 2 is not failing to to excite. The volume of Easter eggs in Episode 2 of Lower Decks this season.
Holy.
Just ridiculous. I can't even begin. Like, too many, it would be spoilery to start describing.
Oh, just put it on pause and just you like every frame of that episode is an Easter egg.
Just ridiculous.
And deep dives.
Some deep cuts from all over the place. Just ridiculous. What If, again, did not disappoint. The second episode was glorious. The next episode coming up is going to be very interesting. I think this season is going to give me exactly what I wanted out of a What If show.
Yeah,
loads of fun.
It's much better than I expected.
Yeah,
and I expected a lot. But yeah.
Of course, we talked about the Knights Black Agents Session 0. There were a couple of moments where when we were trying to decide who had what and whatnot, where it starts to become really clear where the spread is of the different abilities and how things are going to work together. And by the time we got done with that, we have a nice, well-rounded group with some distinct primary roles and flexibility across those characters to do other things. It's a really nice mix. I'm very happy with how that ended up. And there's a thing in Knights Black Agents called the drive, and that's like what drives your character to do the thing. And it was originally, when I started looking at the list, I was like, oh man, I don't know what to take. And then Phil reminded us, like, there's some in there that are specifically tied to the vampires themselves, to the conspiracy. And it's like, you won't have that drive. If you pick one, you won't have it at the start of the game. But once you realize that vampires exist and the reveal happens, that can be your drive going forward. And then the light bulb went on, and for my character, I took Slayer. It's like, as soon as I find out that vampires exist, I'm like, oh, hell no. This has got to stop. They have got to go away. So I'm looking forward very much to the reveal when that moment happens and my character has their little epiphany and decides to just go off. It'll be an interesting moment. That game, the first time I ever played it, I very much enjoyed the game itself, although the story that we were telling was tainted a little bit by some table stuff that didn't quite work out. But love the system. Gumshoe is the way to go if you're going to do any kind of investigative game, as we've said multiple times. So that's that. We haven't, we're down to, at the moment, we're down to just every Sunday, with rotating. So Knights Black Agents on opposite Sundays from iHunt right now. So we don't have that third game, that we were doing on Thursdays, our kind of beer and pretzel night that we were doing for a while. That's kind of still in limbo, whether we're going to do that or not, or pick up a different day or whatever. And our Friday game that we were playing with Chris is either dead or on hiatus. I'm hoping just on hiatus because of his schedule. So it's just 2 games that we've been kind of going back and forth with. So I haven't been getting a ton of gaming in. Right now, that's not a huge problem with all of the move stuff going on. But I'm kind of like, once things settle down, I feel like I want to grab another game somewhere. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I think at some point some of us will have to think about whether or not we want to grab another game on a different night, because I feel like I need one more. And then the last thing I'm going to say is, at the moment, I feel like I'm spending money like Bezos.
Did you buy a big penis rocket?
I did not buy a big penis rocket, no, but I bought a couple of curtain rods, which are long.
And phallic,
some
sure.
people could consider that phallic. And oh, man. Misdirected Mark, word scramble. A shower curtain rod. Yes, that's one of the other things I bought. Yeah, there's like this long laundry list of stuff that I've been slowly working my way through, and just over the last couple of days, I've dropped like a chunk of change. But it's all going to go into hopefully a functional, livable, homey condominium that I hope will be aesthetically not out of whack. We'll put it that way. I am not exactly a designer, or a designer is not the word I was.
Decorator?
Decorator, thank you. I'm not exactly an interior decorator. I'm not like one of those people that's like super good at like matching this to that and color schemes and stuff. But I think I know enough that the choices that I've made so far, a lot of neutral stuff that generally goes together without fault. So we'll see how it looks once it's done.
Yeah, there you go.
All right, Jerry, what about you?
Again, I'm just starting Disco and really enjoying it. Lower Decks completely blew my mind. I loved episode 1, episode 2, even better. Some deep digs. What If? After watching episode 2 of What If, I want to run a game in that world. That's all I'm going to say. It was so much better. I expected What If to be a lot of fun. I was a little worried that we're going to go with kind of standard plots and nothing special nothing new was going to happen, having read the What Ifs. If you read the descriptions, like, oh, what if A, B, and C? Nope, they take A, B, and C, and they add X, Y, and Z and flip it on its head and take it in places you weren't expecting, and I loved all of it. Got to sit and watch Rick and Morty with Bob. I love Rick and Morty, and I had seen all the episodes because I bought it to be in the season. But it was fun to sit with Bob and talk about just a lot of big reveals. The very last episode of this season reveals a couple of really big, important things about Rick's background, and they're kind of hidden in conversation, but when you're done with it, you're like, oh shit. So it's some good stuff. Nice Black Agents is a lot of fun. I'm looking for these characters. As I told Phil as we were leaving, I'm like, even though we're not done with Session 0, I would already watch a TV show with these 5 characters in it. It's a lot of fun and tied together. And I've been catching up movies. I sat and watched the movie The Hunt, which was a big hullabaloo about a year and a half ago. It was okay. It wasn't great, but it was interesting to finally catch up on something. I'm trying to finally watch movies. I don't watch enough movies and TVs to catch up on stuff. People talk about pop culture stuff, and I'm way behind. We were just discussing it. I still haven't seen Can't Hardly Wait, so I might have to have Phil run a watch party for us someday. So, but that was it for me. Just a fun little week of getting stuff done. Phil?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of my stuff overlaps your stuff. I'm ahead of, I think, a couple of you on Discovery. I'm like 9 episodes into season 3. I wind up watching like 2 or 3 episodes at a time because I start watching one. I'm like, shit, I gotta like watch the next one. Yeah, Disco 3 is really good. I don't want to say anything about it because there are people who haven't watched Disco yet. But I will say this to Bob. There's a moment, because I know you've seen it before. There's a moment where Michael's in the junkyard on this junkyard planet looking for self-sealing stem bolts.
Yep.
And I was like, oh man, like that's a fantastic DS9 reference.
Yep.
You don't get a self-sealing stem bolt reference very often anywhere else in Trek. That's deep cut. Lower Decks was amazing. God, that show's really good. It's its own Trek. It really is. It's its own Trek in its own right. It's fantastic. It's quite enjoyable. What If was amazing as well. I would also play in that What If game. That What If is fantastic in the changes that it makes. Plus, one of the last Chadwick Boseman appearances. So that was also quite touching. I finished all the Blacklist episodes. that are on Netflix. I got through the entire season and was not prepared because I wasn't sure what year each of the seasons fell under. But the end of season 7 ends early because of COVID. And the last episode of The Blacklist, there's like a Zoom call with all the actors, and they're like, we have some of this episode shot and some of it not shot. So they got this like not great computer animation and used it to fill in the parts that they couldn't shoot and voiced it over so that they could do the whole episode. And it wasn't bad. Like, it was a nice way to kind of get through, but then they prematurely ended that season like 6 episodes early because that was the 2020, that was the lockdown for 2020. So it locked down and that was it. There is a season 8 that came out this past year, but it has not dropped to Netflix yet. So I needed something else to watch because I typically watch Netflix while I'm eating at my dining room table. I just have like a iPad set up, and if I'm the only one eating, I just like watch something. So I began She-Ra.
Ah, nice.
So I finished the first episode and I'm partway into the second episode. I already like it.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Like, it's fantastic. I'm right there with it. It's cool. So I started watching She-Ra because I figured that is the fastest way I will clear all of those episodes, because I watch at least I watch every day at breakfast, and then if I'm eating dinner alone, I watch on those nights as well. So it'll take me a couple weeks, but I'll get through She-Ra. I spent a chunk of today working on NBA, working out the vampires. To me, this is like the most critical part of playing Night's Black Agents, is to have some idea of who the vampires are, who they are, where they've been, that kind of thing. And I'm narrowing it down. I feel like I've got the good, solid start to them, and think I understand what they do in the modern age. I'm going to run some of it past Senda to see how it sounds, because it sounds good to me, but I need to make sure it sounds good outside of my head. But once I have that down, then I can start working up stats and stuff like that. And that will all lead into the first adventure. The cool part is the game does such a great job of kind of steering you into creating your vampires. Again, cool. I can't say enough nice things about Night's Black Agents, because I really do think, and I use this, I say this a lot, right, that I think Night's Black Agents is one of the best designed games ever. And I say that in that, and I think I've said this before, everything that the game says it's going to do, there's a part of the book that helps you do it. Yep. And it's very rare to find a game that is that tightly coupled to everything you need to do in this game. I'm going to show you how to do it in the game. And it's great. Like, it's really sharp. So yeah, I'm going through the vampire chapter, and it asks you questions and gives you options and has you like, hey, you should think about this and you should think about that, and you should, how does this work? And then it takes you to the mechanical section where it's like, okay, let's stat up your full vampire now. Like, let's make some choices and let's stat up your full vampire, give it powers and all that stuff. Which I think is cool, because when you play Night's Black Agents, you don't really know, like, it's Jason Bourne fights vampires, but you don't know shit about these vampires. Like, there are a couple of things, like they drink blood, like that kind of stuff. But after that, you got to go figure this stuff out, which I love. I think it's brilliant. So anyway, I could gush about that game constantly, but I won't. What else to do? I made some chicken shawarma this weekend using my tried and true recipe that I got from New York Times. Man, that thing never fails. Like, that just makes some good food. I got one more leftover of it to take tomorrow to work, and I'm kind of looking forward to it. I'm like, oh, good. I got I got a decent lunch for work. And I'm gonna make some chicken teriyaki this weekend. That's gonna be my my big dinner on Saturday. Make some chicken teriyaki, some white rice, broccoli, kind of thing. Should be delish.
I was thinking of making some very, very nice, dishes in the back of my brain earlier today. I'm like, what I should do later this week is I should make some tachos.
I mean, listen, I also had like some also on my menu for this week or for the next week, I had some leftover fish planks, like frozen fish planks, and I'm like, what? I'm like, I had them, they were like okay. I'm like, what can I do with these? I'm like, I'm gonna make fish tacos out of these.
Yep.
Like I'm gonna get some red cabbage and a little sour cream mayo, make the slaw for it, and some tortillas, and fuck it, I'm gonna turn these like mediocre fish planks into some fish tacos.
I won't even bother buying, like, I don't do anything with any kind of frozen fish planks, whatever you want to call them, tenders. Like they go inside a burrito. I take a wrap, I put some stuff in there with them, cheese and whatever. I haven't gone as highbrow as to put in like cabbage and other stuff like that yet, but yeah, I make fish burritos. I don't just cook them, put them on a plate with like a side. Like, no, that's boring. It's a fish.
I wanted to break up my my tots and tenders thing, so I was like, I'll get some like frozen fish or something. Like, so here's the thing: there are a couple nights during the week where I don't have a lot of time to eat, or I don't have a lot of time to cook.
Yeah.
So, in my in kind of my weekly menu, I have like certain weeks where I'm just like, okay, this is going to be like tots and tenders tonight, because I'm coming in late from work and I need to eat something before like I'm doing something else. And then there are other days of the week, like Saturday, where I'm like, I have the whole evening, I'm going to fucking cook something, right? Like no pressure on me. I'm going to cook, make something elaborate, have some fun with it. So yeah, so I was like bored and I was like, I've done enough tots and tenders. So I was like, let me do fish and chips, like frozen fish and chips. And the fish was like, okay. Like, it wasn't fantastic. So I was like, I need to eat the rest of this, but like, what could I do that's like better than just putting it with some fries? And I was like, I'll make some fucking fish tacos. Like,
there you go.
This will achieve my goal. Yeah, I tend to only get fancy on cooking on the weekends because when I have time, like that's like kind of the rules.
Usually when
like,
I do anything that's going to be a little more elaborate.
Yeah, this week I just I got some chicken breasts and some chicken thighs from Wegmans that came pre-marinated. Did 5 of them up. I've been having them every day for lunch. I've got those big Joseph Lavash wraps that you can make, and just do kind of a lettuce, tomato, chicken wrap, and it's easy enough to do because I mean you've got Wegmans make so many good things. Just add a little bit of Penzi spices to them, and you're all set to go. I wish I liked fish. I can't do fish tacos. I could try something else, but fish is not my thing, but I really appreciate the fact you guys have so many cool things you can do with them.
Oh, I like what you call it. I love, like, you go to Lloyd's. Lloyd's got that fish burrito thing.
Oh, yeah. Love that thing.
Yeah.
That thing is good.
Yeah, Lloyd's does the cabbage thing too, which doesn't get me. So.
Oh, I love the cabbage. I've fallen in love with cabbage over lettuce inside inside burritos and stuff. Something with a crunch.
Yep. Lettuce just gets wilty and soft, and it's just water. There's no point to it.
I appreciate the crunch. I just wish it didn't taste like cabbage. Then I'd be good.
Yeah.
It's the taste that gets me on those.
So Jerry, I was thinking of you
the
the
after
other day.
effects.
I was thinking of you because I'm gonna make my scallion pancakes and pot stickers.
Nice.
And I found an online recipe for air frying your pot stickers instead of doing them in the pan. And I'm like, well, now, let's give this a try, because that sounds like something that might be fun to do. So I'm gonna break out the old air fryer. Oh, I will say one more thing on the cooking front. Senda made a couple of jams and sent them to me. So she made a peach jam and a raspberry jam.
We saw that peach jam on the Slack room. That looked good.
Holy shit, are they good? Listen, if you think the peach jam is good, and the peach jam is good, the raspberry jam made from the raspberries from her yard is killer. Like, it is so good. I didn't want them to go to waste. So, like, once I opened the seal on them, I'm like, I've just been eating them every morning with breakfast, like just putting them on toast. Holy, I'm going to be sad when they're gone, because, like, man, like, it's so good. She really like totally killed it. Totally
Yeah.
killed it.
Those look delicious.
Yeah.
Especially the peach.
There are some things that I would like to partake in that I don't have the capability in my mind of finishing them in a timely fashion without spoiling part of it and having to throw it out. There are just certain things that, like, I don't want to eat this every day because that would get boring. I already do that with lunch. Like almost every day at lunch, I have a wrap with assorted lunch meat in it. And it's like every once in a while, I mix up the lunch meat. It's usually ham and turkey and roast beef, or I've been buying the Hillshire Farms pastrami, which is actually not bad. But like apple butter. I love apple butter.
Oh, I fucking love apple butter. You know what?
Apple
My friend,
butter's good.
we are like on the precipice of heading into fall
Yes.
when apple butter like becomes a thing.
The primary thing I like to do with apple butter, though, is put it on cottage cheese.
Oh, all right. Stop. God
Yeah.
damn it, Bob. Fucking cottage cheese is.
Yes,
Man,
cottage cheese.
the only thing that should go on cottage cheese is the liner of the garbage bag.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I'm 100% with Jerry. That cottage. Oh, Bob.
Listen,
I mean, I'm
Way
glad you
to
like it,
ruin the
but
end of an
yeah.
episode, buddy.
Oh,
Oh,
on that note, we should probably roll into the Patreon shout-outs and get to the after show, right?
yeah,
God,
I think
yes,
so.
please end this.
Yes.
All right, so thank you to Savannah Sizer, Steve Bissonette, Steve Radabaugh, T. Koustik, Theodore Atkinson, Tom Hay, Victor Wyatt, Noah Bond, Alice Kira, and Austin Lemke. And thank you to everyone for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's Time, come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with the other awesome listeners in the chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
If you can't make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week, wherever you get your podcasts, and take a listen to some of the other shows of the Misdirected Mark Network, such as They're a Super Geek, Mastering Dungeons, Bonestone and Obsidian, the FM Gamers, Panda's Talking Games, the Gnome Cast, Jangu Hustle, the Lounge, Bonus Experience, and back episodes of She's a Super Geek. You can and should also check us out or check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
After you've run your session 0 and before you kick off your campaign, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly via email, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Hit us up on the Twitters. The show and the network is at Misdirected Mark. He is Robert M. Everson. He is GM Gerrymander. I am DNA Phil.
Hey, gang. If you like what we do here and on any of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Word Scramble Network, support our Patreon campaigns. Misdirected Mark Podcast, Mastering Dungeons, and Panda's Talking Games are all at patreon.com/MMP. Jangu Hustle is at patreon.com/Jangu Hustle. And Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Panda's Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the famous Bamboo Lounge, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.